There we go.
It used to be a big button you'd click to record. But anyway, so let me share again. So WordPress news and events, just a couple of things. Last month, we talked about WordCamp Europe, which had recently completed. So if you missed last month, again, you could always search WordCamp Europe. A lot of the recordings are online on YouTube, on the WordPress YouTube channel. But coming up next month is going to be WordCamp US, so taking place in Phoenix, Arizona. Great place to be in August. I guess maybe it was cheap. But anyway, so if you're in the area, certainly check it out. But if you're not in the area, like many of us here, I assume, keep an eye out for the recordings. Generally, like I said, especially these big ones, they tend to put them out on the YouTube channel. So look for that. That usually is the one too where they do the state of the word kind of presentation. So I'll be curious what the state of the word is these days. One thing kind of caught my eye: the state of WordPress on Meetup. This has kind of been alluded to a while for other folks who may be in other WordPress Meetup groups. There's a post on this. I'll bring it up in a second there, but basically, meetup.com, which as a meetup organizer for other things outside of this WordPress, I mean, they charge us organizers like over $300 a year just to be an organizer. So you can imagine WordPress is a corporate, user of meetup.com. Apparently they get charged roughly 250,000 per year. So they're looking to cut their costs. So what WordPress is doing, as they often do, is let's build our own tool. So they're putting together a tool called GatherPress. It's an open source event plugin. I tried it out a little bit. If people are interested, I can kind of show it a little bit. So it's kind of in early beta / alpha phase. There's no timeline yet on when they're going to move away from Meetup.com, but it's kind of strange. So I'm not sure if anyone else has heard about this or not, or Peter, if you heard anything with all your contacts in the WordPress.org space there. But this tool that they've built, from what I've played with it, the thing that's vastly different is it's a plugin that has to go onto, I assume, I don't know what their plan is for this, like long term. If every meetup organizer is going to have to self-host,
Yeah.
have a hosting site and then use this plugin, but it's really a plugin that's very similar to the events calendar, except it has some RSVP capabilities, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's a whole sign up thing where you're going to have users create accounts and all that. I don't know. It's an alpha beta, so I'll reserve some judgment. But right now, it seems like it's going to be quite confusing from from where they are. And I don't know. I tend not to think this is not going to go well. Just in terms of also losing that visibility. I think a lot of people have found us through Meetup, not necessarily through the WordPress dashboard. So. Um,
Yeah, the part of the issue is that it is and will be different and confusing. They've been talking about this literally for years. I mean, it is an automatic, which is the, for
yeah.
lack of a better word, parent company of the whole WordPress ecosystem. Um, it is an automatic tool, which means it'll work well within everything, but far different than it works now. But being its own product, open source within WordPress, yeah, that savings is worthwhile. And people are frustrated too with how Meetup's been working, Meetup changes and all. So there's a lot of advantages, but any change you make can set things into a tailspin. The whole if we get a chance, one of the topics that I'm going to talk about is how confusing it could be. This world of WordPress is. I don't know how many, if we have many new new folks here to talk about that because I know
Yeah.
we had some before. We'll talk about it anyway because it's interesting no matter how you look at it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
this
it.
this
Gene has
one,
a question.
yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead, Gene.
Oh, so do you already have to have a WordPress site so it
I
will show up in
I
your
don't know.
dashboard?
So right
Because
now
I found this through Meetup.
right.
I never did a WordPress site until I started going to these meetups.
That's what I'm saying. Like this plugin seems to imply that you would need to, I don't know how else they would advertise these if they get off of Meetup. Again, for Meetup, having been an organizer of Meetup for again, probably the same 8 years that this group's been around too. There's things I hate about Meetup, but unfortunately it is good for promotion and marketing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see. I didn't want to like throw it out there as a scare thing for people,
Yeah.
just to be aware of that. The plugin itself I mean, it's still in beta phase right now, but more to come on this. So
Yeah.
we don't know exact impacts yet, but just want to throw it out there for awareness.
Yeah. My assumption is going to require at the very least a WordPress.org membership, because at least, but
Maybe
there's
WordPress.com. Who knows?
or maybe WordPress.com, which there
Yeah.
are things that require WordPress.com accounts. So yeah.
Anyway, tool or plugin spotlight. Peter, you got anything for us?
Yeah, I got a quick one. Let me share this. I'm always interested whenever there's a new kind of like, informational tool, if you will. So let me share that screen share. And I'll after I show you, but it's called makewpfast.com. There's a lot of things in it, but it basically comes down to this database of now, the numbers have gone up, 63,000 plugins analyzed, over 200 themes tested. But for example, we're talking about the events calendar, right? So you can come right up here in the top here. Let me make it easier to see. Events calendar. Now is it
It's by try. It's that one. Yeah.
this one here, right?
Yes.
So then basically that not available.
No. No.
Yeah, maybe I've got the wrong one. Let's pick another one
Try
that
see if it's that screwy. The events calendar.
I
Something
think you're
about
right. Yep.
yeah.
So the events calendar. And what it does is there's a performance audit. And yeah, look at that. It's got a D plus per the analytics of this. Now remember, any analytics tool is based on whatever the developer or developers put together to do that analysis. But there is some, interesting things. And just like everything, take all of these things not only with a grain of salt, but as basically as more of an indicator of one thing or another. Like you could say, hey, I want a choice between this and another. Now I'm going to try another one to see if they have something I use called Pie Calendar, and see, well, what is the overall impact of the site? So that's what this tool, this free tool, is trying to do, is say, okay, we're looking at it, and what things kick in that would typically slow down your site. And it starts going into the detail of what it needs to do and all. Most of the time when we're looking at these things, we're kind of looking at, well, just kind of give me the rating and let me know, especially if I'm doing comparisons. Again, more indicators of, like, another tool that I prefer for calendar is called Pie Calendar, and I'm going to guess that is a much higher score, an A- on that, because it doesn't have a whole lot of overhead. It doesn't have, all of the kind of custom post type things on the back end and stuff. It just adds.
Peter, does it have recurring events?
It does. It does in the pro version.
Yeah, of course. Okay, thanks.
That's the one thing in the pro version. And the pro version's cheap. I mean, it's not. It's
So
not
is that's the pro version of events calendar too. Has
yeah, I think right. What I like about the Pie Calendar versus the events calendar, and working with folks, just quick aside, but why not? We're talking about it, and this is kind of some of the other stuff I'm looking into. Is you have so many choices of everything. In the events calendar, it's all set up like, okay, you're going to add an event. You add an event. What is the venue? Who's the organizer? Fill in this blank. Go this. Oh, this is a sub. This is related to this. Put all this stuff in. Put all this. Most of the time, and what people like and what the Pie Calendar does really good is, let me do a post. Let me tell you about a thing. And this post happens to be a calendar thing, So we're doing an event where we're going to have a bake sale, and it's going to be really great. And here's some pictures of the kids who work on the bake sale, whatever. And then when you have Pie Calendar activated, you say, and it's going to take place on July 18th, something like that. So you're taking a post and you're adding a date to it versus in the events calendar. But because of that, there's a lot less overhead. So tools like this can show you the difference. But with all the choices that we have, and anytime there's like a simple tool here that at least gives me some kind of like insight as to whether something is efficiently written, and in a lot of cases the bloat comes from something that's been built over time and adapted over time and made in a time when WordPress worked one way and it works a different way now. And also, but having something like this that allows you to kind of test things. If you go to the tabs up here, this is where you can kind of get an overview of just, we looked at contact form 7 and get the report on contact form 7. That's going to be a lot speedier, because if you know anything with contact form 7, it's a pretty simplistic way of building forms, versus, like, I'm curious if what's fluent forms, fluent forms right there, which is in the database, right? So B minus, but there's also a lot more overhead with fluent forms. And you got to keep in mind too that a lot of this is going to be related to what your server environment is and caching and things like that. So again, indicators, but things that might be kind of interesting to say, hey, I heard about this thing, tell me about it. All of a sudden, maybe there's some red flags that go off in terms of performance or something like that. Just a neat little free tool, makewpfast.com.
Interesting. Yeah. Like you said, I mean, there's a lot of different factors into performance stuff, but that's cool though. Yeah, especially if you're considering like adding something or purchasing something too. I think that's before you close, I should ask you what did Divi look like? Or Elementor, those page builders have.
I'm not, well, off screen. I'll see if Divi's even in here. Divi, it's all support plugins for Divi, but not Divi itself.
Okay, yeah.
But that's because Divi is paid only anyway, right?
Yeah.
What
that's
about
true.
Elementor? What does it say about Elementor?
Elementor. Good
Elementor.
question.
Yeah.
Elementor website builder. D plus.
Yeah.
Not surprising.
It's a D plus if you were to check for cadence.
You're
And
not sharing your screen, Peter.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, get that out. There we go. Okay. So yeah, cadence.
The theme gets A minus, which is pretty good. Yeah.
B minus. There's some now. If you take the cadence theme, and let's talk while we're doing this. Let's talk about, because we were talking about cadence a little bit earlier, and for anyone who doesn't know, cadence blocks, cadence theme, something that we've really liked over time. I like Sue uses Ray uses it to some extent now, but it was purchased and a lot of the developers are gone and things have changed. And one of the biggest issues that users ran into is the licensing. The licensing has changed dramatically in terms of cost. So a lot of people who were so incredibly gung-ho for cadence are either questioning it or leaving it. So that's kind of an interesting aspect about this particular tool that has been a darling of ours for a while, in the classic / hybrid theme. So it's not a full site editing block theme, and that environment. But now if you look at, let's do Generate Press. So Generate Press, always considered very highly rated, super efficient in the way it works. The Generate blocks is going to be, I'm sure, higher because there's fewer blocks, and that's kind of their the way they approach things. B plus, anytime you're adding, things that have to call a design front end, back end, and things like that, it's going to take a little bit of hit. Again, you start looking at stuff and it's like, milliseconds and what that means in the overall stuff. What they do is they do talk about, in some cases, that time to first byte, that is a measuring not parameter, but it is a what's the word I'm looking for? It is a measurement of things like how quickly your site reacts to, from when somebody clicks to it to the first byte that comes back from the server. The more the site and the server have to think about it, the longer that might take. So there's some things we can always show with analytics and the Chrome tools that show you some of that stuff pretty easily. So yeah,
it's fine. I know we haven't done a performance focused meeting in a while, but there's there's things too from when you're hunting down a performance problem. I usually start with the most likely culprit, which is myself, and something I did, and then my hosting, and then by the time I'm getting down to these commercial plugins, I'm sort of it could, they could be part of the problem, but quite often I say the 80/20 rule is probably something that you did or something on your site or something like that. That's more likely culprit. But I think as you're drilling down though, yeah, it's I think it's good information to see. So
Yeah.
well, so summer school session 2, here we are.
Here we are. Would love before we start, love to know if anybody has any specific things you'd like us to cover, right? So that's kind of right. Our open
Yeah.
forum being able to allow people to ask questions. So if anybody has anything,
And Ted, you talked about some concerns or trepidation around WordPress 7. So
yeah.
do you mind sharing a little bit of so are you talking about, do you have a single site that you're going to be upgrading, haven't upgraded, or just kind of
Yeah, thanks for asking. I have 2 that I maintain for not-profits, and then I have 3 that I do for myself. One is business related. The other is my art and writing personal site that I care about a lot. So I know that I'm going to have 2 organizations. They won't know about this, but they will only be able to look at me if it breaks. I'm old enough, and they know that I'm frail enough, so to speak, in terms of work life, to be able to say, I'm out of it. You're going to have to pay for somebody else. A reality that's not pretty. And so when I saw that 7.0, like Sue, I was thinking, well, I'm going to wait for another number. I always do, then 0. But that's it. So I don't know much about it, but I don't, on my sites, I'll just say upgrade because they always say that, and I've held back. And I don't know how bad I'm harming myself by waiting, or what I was afraid of most is that I would now have to take like a 2-day class just to understand the the WordPress platform. What's the word for it? I can't even think of the name. The whole thing on the column on the left.
oh yeah, the admin part, yeah.
Yeah,
I can give some general. So this is, I think, a good discussion. Let's talk a little bit broad first about update best practices and things to reduce risk, and then we can talk more specifically about WordPress 7 and what's in there. So one question I would have, or maybe this is just maybe it varies on the number of sites you have, is I have found just in general the farther back your sites are in terms of being updated version wise, that's going to cause more issues. And just like anything, if you have a site that hasn't been updated since WordPress 6.0 and go to 7, watch out. You've missed a lot in between. So those are the ones that you really need to be extremely careful with. In fact, you may want to go back.
Yeah, and it's 6.8 something or other. So
so that's not bad. That's probably not too far back. So that's one thing, how far the leap is to do an update. That's definitely a big risk thing. The other thing that's been changing with WordPress with each release is they've been changing the PHP requirements. So with WordPress 7, it's what, PHP 8.3, I think, something like that is their minimum number. So that could be something where just your hosting may not, beyond you and WordPress, if you upgrade to, or you try to upgrade to the latest version, you may say, you can't because, you need to change something on your hosting side. So that's a kind of a tricky hidden one. And then the last one I'll say, and I'll shut up and let others jump in there too, is sometimes it's not even the theme, it's also the plugins that go with it too. So again, if you've been updating all the plugins all along, and now you're just updating the theme, if you're updating the WordPress version, things generally should be okay. But if you also need to do the plugins at the same time, do them all. You need to separate separate like the updates, so you don't do everything at once and then it's like what broke, so it's kind of do things in isolation.
Would you do plugins first or second?
If you're at 6.8, I would probably do plugins first. Yeah,
That's what I've been doing. Yeah.
and we'll talk a little. I can talk a little bit later too about things to test out and how to isolate that testing. So depending on your hosting environment, in general, we say it's nice to have a staging environment where you can make an exact copy of your site, do updates there, and test things out. Not everyone has that luxury. If your hosting provider doesn't provide it, sometimes it's a higher paid tier that you need to do that. There's other ways you can test it out. There's also staging types of plugins, which I don't have experience with. I know, Peter, if you do, or any other thoughts on like safely staging. The thing I was going to show tonight is one way to do it, but I don't know if there, before I show that piece.
So you've got Studio and I use Local, so for that version. So
Yeah.
The thing about a staging site that is not actually running on the same server is getting it as close to the same environment as to what your live site is, because you might have something and you say, oh, I loaded it locally and look how fantastic, and then push some of that live, or update live and realize that your servers are different enough where now you run into a problem. So that's one of the issues with staging. I mean, those backups, those server, it's knowing your environment is really important. If you're managing sites for organizations, they're hosting somewhere. Do we know how backups are done? Are you running other backups? Are those backups stored off site? Are you backing up things like the whole site, or can you back up the database, the plugins, the themes? I have a tool that allows me to do that way. There's also tools like WP Rollback, which is a plugin that allows you to say, oh, I updated that, now I got a problem, let me roll that back to the previous version. There's a number of ways of doing it. The discipline and who you're doing it for, if you're got a client and it's a website that makes a lot of money, the way you manage this is going to be far more. Everything's important, and I don't mean to underplay that, but the critical nature of doing things, and especially when you talk to folks who are giving advice, there are some people who would just never do anything without testing each thing offline. Do push that, make sure, so fine. Whereas I know in some of my environments, it's just like, okay, did it incrementally, do a couple, test it, run into a problem, roll it back over the, down for 5 minutes sometimes, right? So it's
I will, sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
one thing to throw in there too is back to this whole thing we talk about, like backups. Backups are only great if you've ever tested a restore and knowing how to restore. That's one just general good piece of advice, but also
that's extremely important.
Making sure you have a way to get to your site if something does break. So, like Sue said, for example, the PHP, testing, it's fairly easy to set back. Right. If you're changing at the hosting level, but sometimes if you're going to WordPress dashboard, let's say, and you're doing an upgrade of a plugin or something that really breaks your site, and now you're going to someone's getting an email saying, "Oh, the site is down." First off, who's getting that email? Is it you, or is it your client, or who's getting it? And do you know how to get access to that site while it's down? So those are the kind of things you want to make sure. I always try to make sure I have two different ways to get into the site. So FTP, kind of the old way to set up an FTP connection to a site, or hosting if you're the one doing the hosting. cPanel. But let's say you're using it, working for a client site, you don't have access to their hosting, or it's one of those two-factor most people two-factor authentication things. So when's the last time you tried that out?
Yeah.
So you may need to tell somebody you're doing something, because if things hit the fan, you're like, hey, can you give me that code?
Right? Is getting access to those things not part of your standard professional relationship with the client?
It can be. Yeah. I mean, some of it depends on who built the site to begin with and when I'm coming into the project. So yes, I would say in general, yes. The
Because
two-factor.
I'd never do something serious if I didn't have access to
Yeah.
either the cell phone number of their server guy
Yeah.
or FTP to the
Correct.
thing.
Yeah.
And whenever you make an edit, you make a backup, like if you edit the config file. Yeah, I mean, but you can't do major things. Upgrading to 7.0 or 7.01 is not a big deal.
Yeah.
But unless your site's very old and you've done and you have a backup, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But all these things like something broke or I got to change PHP, I wouldn't work on it. I don't think I'd be comfortable working on a site if I didn't have access to the hosting.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Some of these are just general best practices, even beyond TED, whoever's watching this maybe in the future too, of, how to, I think we did a whole thing a while ago too, probably a long
Yeah.
time ago now, how to safely update and do things like that. So they're just general good reinforcements. So,
Yeah, it's interesting with the people who are on this who have been on this meetup over time. You have often, right? I am running a website for a nonprofit. I inherited a website, and they might not have any access to the server. And I've worked with organizations. They go, nobody knows who that is. It's just been happily chugging along, and we do not know. And that's part of the analyzing and going through, but at the same time it's like, but we need to make this change. It's like, okay, but we're doing it on a unsteady
Peter,
platform.
in cases like that, because we work with a lot of nonprofits,
Yeah,
you have to talk to their financial person and say, who do you pay bills to?
who's paying the bills here?
Yeah.
And
treasurer,
then you start trying to wheedle out their usernames and passwords. And
Where it gets interesting are things like political sites, like local politics. And somebody did something, they were part of a committee years ago, and coming off of their credit card, and they're like, oh, it's my donation to the party or something like that, but then nobody knows who's actually doing it. And it happens. And yeah, there's sometimes you just have to, hey, I've had situation where you just had to like make a copy and move it to a new server to people who own, and that happens.
Yeah, it's like when somebody builds the site and puts in their license and then you fall away from them and then all of a sudden you don't have a license. Clients don't understand licenses.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Cadence pricing, they want something like $300 a year when I have enterprise licenses that are on like 100 sites or more. And I don't pay $300 a year per site, but you tell that to a client.
Yeah.
If you move this, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's
so
hard.
So I'd say, like, again, this kind of the general stuff of just, before any big update, kind of make sure backups, all that kind of stuff. I'd say as far as actual WordPress 7.0 and 7.01, at least from what I've seen on most sites, as Sue said too, I didn't notice any issues on it, because one of the big features that was supposed to be part of 7.0 got pulled. So maybe if you that's the thing too, Peter says this quite often too, if you're reading some old news about WordPress 7, they pulled something big at the last minute, literally almost like the last week or so. There was supposed to be this whole feature around real-time collaboration like Google Docs. That's not in it. That we don't know when that's ever going to come back. They keep saying it will, but anyway, that would have caused lots of, or potentially could have been a very risky thing in there. So with that removed, a lot of what got put into 7.0, quite frankly, was just cosmetic things, including some blocks that perhaps you'll never even use. The most noticeable thing will be that back end. So that at the administrative dashboard, in fact, let me, we can still keep talking about this, but I'll just share just so Ted sees this. Here's kind of,
while you're pulling that up, Ted, I'm curious, do you know what theme these sites are using?
Divi Divi on a lot of them, and just blocks on one of them.
Okay. Yeah, because that one of the things is, if you, and this gets so confusing right out of the gate, whether you're running something on a classic theme, now Divi is its own theme and builder, or on a block theme, a lot of the changes that happen in these updates do more impact on, if you're in the block theme, full site editing. Divi, you're not going to, as long as it works, you're not going to see anything. I don't know, and Ray, you have more experience with how well Divi handles updates. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good.
The core ones are usually fine. Yeah. Core
better than Elementor.
Yeah.
this is
Ted, did you build those sites and use Divi on purpose, or did somebody build them for you?
The first one.
Okay,
yeah,
Yeah, I
Then-
picked up on Divi in 2016 or something.
yeah.
Upgrading my own sites that had started 1999 or so, something like that.
okay, yeah.
So like
I'll give a life lesson here and then not bow out of the show here, but out of my question, and which I appreciate. So about a month ago, the man who had hired me to take his art project, which was for rock musicians in Scarsdale, New York, all the music from the 60s of his friends, beautiful thing. And so I made a website for them, and they just love it. So he called me up and he said, he lives about 2 hours south of me, and he said, Ted, I have 2 months to live.
Oh.
So could you pay up for 5 years, have me pay up for 5 years?
Mhm.
And here's the life lesson. I couldn't do it the next day. And it really meant log into the cPanel, make sure that my passwords, that he hadn't edited them, changed them, right? So that can I still get in there? Yay, I could. I could even cause him to pay, even though his credit card was out of date. But to add my phone number in second factor required his phone number. So I called him back and took care of that with him and his caregiver on the phone. He said, Ted, take it all over, put your name on it, your address, take it over, and then create with a group of other rock musicians, because I've got 2 months to live.
Mhm.
Now, here's the lesson. 3 days later, I got a message from our joint friend that he had died.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah. And of course, I still could have figured my way around his cell phone, and you
Mhm.
can with the help of the good people. But I just thought, good on me, Ted. I'm old enough to know on things like that. Don't say to yourself, okay, I've got 2 months. I've got a lot going on today. Next week, maybe, the week after
Mhm.
my vacation. No, I did it as soon as I could.
Ted,
So-
that's a good lesson. We had the WordPress community lost a person who's a friend of mine. She's very active unexpectedly.
Mhm.
And I've been working with her brother, who doesn't know anything about her business or stuff, just trying to make sure that the active stuff she had was being handled and handed over to people. She didn't prepare for this. There was, other than making him the executor and giving him her one password, main password, I've got all but one thing done, and it was a struggle. So anybody who's building websites for anybody, if you haven't put together a what if I get hit by a bus scenario in writing, if you haven't done that, you're not handling business very well. Nobody wants to think about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. I have grandkids. I have kids. I have hundreds of domains in that I manage. And I made sure a few months ago, after this happened, that every single business thing was taken care of. And I encourage anybody who's in that business, no matter how small your business is or how big, that you've got that written down and it's legal in the state you live in.
That's great advice. Yeah. I mean, it goes, you're right. It's kind of, in the financial sphere, it's all about having similar stuff for your spouse or your family about bank accounts and things. Having gone through that with, my father passing away and other like family members and stuff, it's similar, but, different. It's because a lot of times most people don't know, like this one's even a little bit more complicated because most people don't realize, oh, there's not just a website, it's the hosting, it's it's the connections, it's the license, it's all. You're right. It's a tangled ball, but you're absolutely right, Sue. And thanks for sharing your story too, Ted. It's like,
and us humans are so shy of the D word for death.
Yeah.
So I use the other word, disappear,
yeah.
because it could be that I no longer have the mind.
Yeah.
or that I'm in a hospital and can't move my arm, all those things. So I just say disappear.
Yeah.
And I wrote this friend who told me, I said, if I should disappear right now, do know you can come over to my house and get all the information. And I printed it out, showed it to my wife. We put it in that special box. So if, Jay knocks on the door saying, Ted's not responding, she'll just pull out this paper and say, well, so Sue, I agree. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah. Well, and a cheerier note, 7.1, this is all you're really going to see. You're going to see some brighter fonts and some blue, and quite literally, these were like the major changes is on that back end.
It won't look like glass. Oh, I love glass.
It looks, yeah. And if you don't like this too, one thing too is you can always change it back. I think it's under settings, general, where is it, appearance or something? I forget exactly where it is, but there's a spot.
Yeah.
Where is it? It's under profile.
Like Apple won't let you go back, right?
Yeah.
I don't
User
know.
your profile, and then from there you go to, it's called Fresh.
Oh, there it is, profile. Yeah. So it's this. So it's using this. Or no, this is the default theme. It used to be something else. Was it Fresh before?
Fresh is the new one. Fresh is the old one.
Fresh is the old one. Yeah.
So if you want to go back to the old default, or you could pick one of the other ones, or there's a plugin that allows you to have complete control over all the colors.
So a lot of the changes with 7.01 were back end things like this. Another one too is sort of this keyboard shortcut where you can go to things faster now. You can go to like, to be honest, I keep forgetting it's there. It's probably is good for that.
That's why they put the link in the top.
Yeah.
There's nobody remembering it. There's that little link for that. The other one, so I was on another meetup just yesterday, and it was kind of interesting because we were talking about 7.0, and it's fascinating to me how when people are talking about it, they say, nobody's going to care about that, and it's like it's different to different people. So that one of the features, and you might want to show this real quick, is the visual revisions. Which I think is great and important and such an improvement. It was funny how they said, they go, yeah, that's not important. It's like, who's going to use that? And it's like, no, especially, because then we got a conversation about.
So we're talking about here, and this is for Ted and others, is they've added in the past, when you had multiple revisions to a page or a post, it would show them up as almost like a diff of kind of code side by side. It's a bit hard to figure out. Now, this visual revisions, you click on it, you can see it highlights things that were added, it highlights things that were removed, et cetera, just by clicking through the timeline. So it's a nicer way to really understand how a page or a post changed. So that's, I totally forgot about that one. That's
really good. Although I have no idea how that would work with Divi.
That's a good point.
I don't use Divi, so
I can try that on a site later if I remember. One quick thing, I know if you have other stuff to kind of show, again, if folks have other things to talk about, but when we were talking about updating a site, what I showed last month, and I could do more of a dive on this, is, and Peter said this too, there's different tools that allow you to do this. There's one called Local, it's Local by Flywheel is kind of the old name of it, but that basically lets you create and run WordPress on your computer. And WordPress itself has a free one as well too, called Studio. So Studio is, I'll show in a second here. Oops, where's mine? So Studio, it's an environment. I'm on a Mac, so it's loaded on my Mac where I can run WordPress websites. One of the nice things you can also do with this too is this site, like for example, my demo site up here that we were just looking at a second ago. This is my demo 2 site. You can actually copy that down locally too. So that's a great way to kind of do staging on your machine. So to do that, what I did was, and it's in the docs someplace. Here we go. What's cool about the WordPress one is it actually takes in, you can have a zip file from local, you can have a WPress file from this all-in-one WP migration. So on my site here, my live site, well, my demo site, I should say, I installed the WP all-in-one WP migration plugin, and then I export this, and I just export it to a file. I won't do the whole thing. I guess I answered it. This one's not too bad. So it's creating a zip file for me. I can then download the zip file, and on my computer, I have to let it download. Sorry, I'm not gonna download it. So, but you can see what it's doing. Maybe this is a good thing to show. It zipped up all of the media files, it zipped up the plugins, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to download it. I'll click it here. But when I add a site now locally, I can say, oh, I want to import it from a backup. So I can drag that that WordPress, that backup file to here, and it's going to create a site. And unfortunately, it's going to start to chug my machine a little bit because I was downloading. So that's what this is. This is a local version of the site I just showed. So the nice thing is once you have that, what I can do now is I can test out things like upgrading the WordPress version. I can test out plugins, et cetera, and I have a safe environment to do it in. If something breaks, I can just restore it and rebuild it. So that's definitely I'd say a recommended way to do it. So here, I'm just sort of starting it up on my computer right now, but here's that
I'm
same
sorry, I
site.
missed how it would be better than local.
They're the same. So if you've used local before, yeah,
Yeah.
this one has a couple of it's supported by WordPress, so I think it's getting
Yeah,
some
I like
additional features built into it. If you're
Mhm.
familiar with local, I've had problems with local on a Mac. So I found this one actually works better for me on a Mac because of security certificates. My Mac, the latest version of the Mac OS doesn't seem to like that, like local.
Yeah, I found I still use local. Um Ironically, it's a WP Engine product
Yeah.
now because it was Flywheel and it's local. So you'll often hear people who've been using it a while call it local by Flywheel because that's what used to be Flywheel, the hosting company. So now it's actually by WP Engine, but it's under the name Local WP. And there's been some really nice improvements. I found it used to be for me, Ray, like you said, like on a Windows, even a little touchy at times and how to do stuff. But now there's been improvement, like with getting the trusted certificate. There's just a button you press that says trusted, and it goes through a process that I think it writes something to your host file, or I don't know for sure, but that's your local file that basically says trust this website. And since it's local, but I don't use a Mac, so I don't know if that improvement is carried over to your environment.
Yeah. So I can show more of that at some point tonight if people are interested in that. I think last month I just did the basics of how to build up a site. There's additional features in it that are kind of neat. I think some of them are still in local as well. It just might be a different way to get to it. So, but yeah, that's a great tool. Again, free. Can't beat the price to really test out changes.
And I put the links in the chat, but also included is not to forget Playground, which is running WordPress in your browser, and that keeps improving. I have not gone so far as to go into the whole blueprints kind of thing, but now when companies are doing demonstrations, it's a one-click run the whole thing in the browser kind of stuff. Just keep in mind, you close it, the site's gone. Although there are ways of saving it now, which is amazing.
Let me show just honestly, I'll try to do it in like 7 minutes at most. So this is the advanced, yeah. So these are kind of the advanced things. So again, go back to our video from last month to see the basics. But so local, what can you do with it beyond the basics? I mean, what I just showed is, I guess, a little bit beyond the basics of importing an existing site. So that's kind of neat. You can use a tool like all-in-one WP migration, pull your site down, load it in here. Some other things that are built into it that are, I think, worth discussing are, let me see, which one should I show first? So as I said, the files themselves are running on my computer. So if you want to actually just look at the files quickly and make some changes, you can click on the Finder button here. It'll open it up on my file system. So here I can see, here's the WP content, here's the plugins, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a real quick way to get to it. But another cool thing too is Cursor, which I think is Claude code kind of. I can also open up that whole project in this. So this is another sort of, if you use like Visual Studio or like Visual Editor, things like that. This is very similar to it, except it's an AI, for better or for worse, driven one. You don't have to use the AI portions of it, but what's cool is, so it's going to open up that my website inside of a code editor. So it's a little bit slow now because I'm using Zoom and Zoom's, and I'm running the website thing, but there it goes. It starts to come up, but there it is. So there's my site again. But what's cool is, I can click on any of the code in here. There we go. I can see the code in here, and I have this little agent on the side too. So I can do, AI, whatever commands against my code as well. So that's kind of a neat thing that's just built in and integrated with this tool. Two more quick ones I'll show. One is, and I think this is in local as well too. I can bring up PHP my admin, so it's going to bring up my database. Again, this is pointing to my local instance database. So just to prove it, if I want to look at, let's say, the posts, there we go. So here's all my dummy posts in there. So again, just for one click of a button. And then one last thing, let's say that you're debugging a problem and you don't want to, fill up debug logs in a server, et cetera, et cetera. In this case, let me just put let's see, which one is this? This is my local one. Hold on a second. Do I have the plugin? Do I have a code snippet plugin in here? Nope, I think I have it here. So I was just going to put in I'm sorry, it's the wrong one. It's this guy. Let me just start this guy up. So whenever you start up, you can have multiple sites running at the same time too. So I'm just going to start the site up for a second, and I'm going to add a debug message in here just real quick to show what that looks like. So again, let's say your site's having some errors, especially like the PHP ones, or let's say a plugin that's having some sort of issues. Maybe you want to throw in some debug code or like turn on debugging. So what's nice about this tool is, okay, it's running now. Go back into here. This is I have two demo sites on here. So I created just a code snippet to do just a debug log message. All right, so I need to turn it on. So if you've never used code snippets before, this is kind of a nice way just to, let's apply it. Oops. Well, I think it's turned on already. Okay, so now that debug log message is turned on. So now if I go back to this site, one of the settings that you can do in here under site settings, there's advanced settings under edit site. I can turn on my debug log. So I save that. I think it restarts the site because it needs to do that to do debugging. But now I know I'm going to have a debug message because I created like a hello world kind of debug message. So it's going to restart up the site, and then it'll give us one-click access as soon as it restarts. Let me really go back. Oh, that's Peter's phone. And let me just open up the site so I trigger the debug. So if I just move around the site a little bit, I'll go, whatever, open up this blog post. Now, if I go back to site settings, you can see now there's a link to the log file. So I click on that, there's my debug message. There's other apparently debug there's other messages in here that are warning messages from, hey, cadence blocks, but that's the one that I wrote. So this debug log is just local on my computer, and it's nice. Again, I can just get to it from one click. So some of this stuff I think is built into that local tool as well. PHP, I believe there's a PHP my admin type of database tool built in, but some of these other little features are kind of neat. So did I have anything else on that? Again, it's free, which is really nice. It can be CPU intensive, but that is one thing. So obviously, as I'm doing this demo and running other stuff, you can see my machine was slowing down a little bit. And then the export. So the other part too is, so let me show that again real quick. I believe local, as well as Peter said, connects to a hosting platform. So if you're using local, you can publish your site to, what was it, Peter? Is it WP Engine, I believe? Or is it Managed WP?
WP Engine.
WP Engine. Yeah. This tool can publish it to WordPress.com, which, I assume most people are probably not running on WordPress.com. But what you can do, you can use that same plugin, the all-in-one WP migration plugin, or another type of export plugin, make your changes, do whatever you want on the local site, and then export it and then import it to your real hosting. So it's kind of a good way. It's a good sandbox to build new sites or do debugging. Any questions on that tool? Or it's free. Peter put the links in there as well. All right, so that's running local stuff. What else, Peter? Do you have any stuff to kind of show and tell?
Well, yeah, I'll show. I've got a quick thing to show, and I've got a kind of a long discussion thing. And at the end, maybe we can just kind of touch on that's kind of interesting, and maybe we'll spend more time next time on some of the details. But let me grab the screen, if I may.
You may.
Okay. Okay, so this is just we could touch on how to use AI within WordPress in a little bit. I did some of that on the last meetup. And the whole topic of where and how to use AI with WordPress is its own really interesting topic. It's up for debate. Some people are totally against it. Some people are 100% in, and then there's people like me who like to use it as a tool to do certain things efficiently and well. And it's kind of that the debate around that is really interesting. You know, there's you're going to find plenty of stuff that talks about do all of your creation with AI. Take the connector, go to Claude, connect them. There's tools to use to do this, which is build your whole website by just saying, I want a website that sells my garden supply store stuff. Whatever. I don't like that. I would go out and I would say, I would prototype something. I would look at it and see how does it work in, and how can I make sure that it's built in such a way that we can build off it. But I'm going to show you a quick little, when AI is like this extra tool that you may not have thought about using. And this is and I'm looking at one of my demo sites here. And if you don't already know, if you go under tools, you've got something called site health. So in site health, once this opens up, you will see, and this server is slow because I don't put a lot of money behind it. When you open up site health, you get this whole site health status. So this is good, especially if you didn't know it was there, to take a look and say, how is my site running? What issues do I have? That type of thing. So we'll let the results are still loading and take a second to run. But what's really nice is if you go over into the info tab, once it loads, there is a little button there. Give it a second. I'll just show you what basically happens. Let me grab this, pull it over. There we go. Mm-hmm. So it's run the site health thing. This is now part of WordPress core. You will have it as part of your WordPress install. There are other plugins that do site health type things, but this is built in. So when you run site health, one of the things you've got is copy the site info to the clipboard. And when you copy it to the clipboard, it takes basically all of the things from the reports and it makes a big markdown text file to use. So what you could do is you can copy that site to the clipboard. It's in the clipboard now. And now I went to, and I've got two versions I'll show you. And instead of running it, I will just show you the results. But I took, this is ChatGPT. You can run it in the free versions. You can run it in Claude. You can run it in Perplexity. I do happen to like I've tested them all, and I kind of like the ChatGPT output better, and you'll see why in a second. But this is the one I want to actually show you. But my prompt here is, please analyze the following WordPress site health info file and summarize it for me. Highlight any issues or areas of improvement with instructions on how to fix or improve. Make the information more easy to understand. This is great if you look at it and it's immediately overwhelming. And then what you do is you paste what you've copied into the clipboard from your site health, and you paste it in there. You just, in your chat box, you hit Control V or right mouse click paste, Depending on, sometimes it'll drop it below, or you'll see that text is pasted up here. Clicking on it, it'll show me basically what's in that file. I don't know why this is running. Maybe my connection is slow. But that's all been loaded. So I pasted that, I hit enter, and then it takes a little bit. This is again ChatGPT, and it gives me a neat kind of, it tells me, what are the biggest concerns? It's looking at all of the stuff, and it says, hey, debugging is enabled on a productive website. PHP cache is full and performing poorly. There are 61 inactive plugins. This is a test site, so I've got a bunch of things in there. And then, because of the way I prompted it, it says, okay, so highest priority issues. Disable the debugging on the live site is what it shows, and then it tells me what I should do, which is great. It's great if you're unaware of these things and all, but it gives you some direction. And of course, now you're in the chat, so you can say, hey, can you explain that debugging thing a little bit more deeply? This is what I see on my site. So now you're working off of your site health info file. So now you can get, kind of specific answers. So, here's the recommended fix. Go to your WP config file and, put in this text, for example. And then again, if you want site 2, fix the full PHP OP cache, which maybe I don't know what that is. And then it's like, okay, here's the warning we're getting. Here's what you should do. So this is a neat way to become more expert with the information provided, with some information that you can use. It's just, some of this stuff might already be in the site health report, because you do get an overview right within WordPress, and you might say, hey, you got a lot of inactive themes. Do you really need those inactive themes? This is telling you a little bit more, why it matters, what you can do, that type of thing. Update the active theme and plugins. Hey, I found a couple of ones that are inactive, that need updating, and so on and so forth. So this is a great way to take all of that information, put it into an AI tool, and say, hey, explain it to me. Tell me what I need to do. Give me some advice on this. What am I missing? The way the memory limits work. And it just kind of goes through each one of those tools. And so you can improve the overall health of your site. It's yet another tool to do it. And then another version I used, and you'll see this, we won't go over through everything. It's the same file, that info health file. I just added this part. Please analyze the following WordPress site info for, and I gave the URL of the site. And then I added, please take a look at the site directly and let me, oh, see, that's even spelled. It's smarter than I am. Let me know with performance and other issues and opportunities. I typed this really fast. So now it's got the full URL too. So instead of just that site, it's like, okay. And it goes through this process of looking at everything. It's going to give me a lot of those same types of things, what we found. But this report is a lot longer if I scroll down, because it starts looking at, things on the site and again, recommendations for, is this comprehensive to every last detail? No, of course not. But it's a great way of having this developer advisor looking over your shoulder and saying, hey, here's some things to pay attention to that you might not have any idea even when you look at this, but now you can look into it a little bit more deeply, work with the AI chat to say, hey, what do you mean by this or that type of thing? And so much more detail when it's looking at both that health file and the actual site itself.
That's an excellent way to use AI. That's a really good way.
I admire it too.
And the site,
Beautiful.
the thing that's interesting now, again, because if you had tried this during our last summer of AI, a lot of these GPT tools would not go out to your site and crawl it. So that's changed, right, in the past year. Or Peter, is that because I know you have a paid version of at least one of these things? Is it?
Yeah, I since I've been on paid for, I have the $20 a month of Chat GPT, Perplexity, and Claude. I use them for different purposes. They all can now read and see websites.
Yeah.
Peter, when you use Claude versus ChatGPT for a prompt just like this,
Yep.
do you find that Claude is looking more at the code and ChatGPT is looking more at the, are you attracting site visitors?
Yeah, a lot of times Claude is much more analytical to the code.
Yeah, I
So
would think so.
this is the Claude response to that same question, and it's both more truncated and less instructional. Even though I gave it the same prompt that says,
Mhm.
summarize, highlighting any issues that are areas for improvement. So that was one thing that I found. Now, again, another issue is, well, what model did you choose, right? So that's
Oh,
another.
you were in Sonnet?
Yeah. So
That's, you should be fine in Sonnet.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But it's like, do I want to go to, high thinking mode kind of stuff? I'm in medium thinking, which is good. The amount of thinking that it does for this type of thing, should be fine. But when you compare that against, for example, the Chat GPT response, where it's really kind of saying, hey, here's what I found, here's the type of thing you should change. Yeah, let's see, do I have.
It's also easier to understand because it's got headings and subheadings.
Yeah.
One,
Yeah.
one-
ChatGPT tends to be more conversational,
Yeah.
more for me. Right. So,
one thing we talked about before, I think it was last summer too, is with these tools, context, a lot of the context is key. So I'm curious, like from a Chat GPT standpoint, now if it could show you that it went out your site and like what did it do? Because so last year I think I showed um, the Gemini actually built into the developer tools in Chrome is able to interrogate, your CSS and HTML, kind of everything you see in Chrome Dev Tools. And that was last year. I didn't get a chance to play around with it since then, but it was within that context of, hey, I need to, it really knew the code. It saw the code, but for that one page, because that's what it was looking at. This one, yeah, I'm curious, what did it pull down? Did it actually like what did it retrieve from the site? Did it pull down every page and look at the HTML, or just, is
yeah.
it just HTTP
You,
responses?
you know what you can do now? I watched somebody do it. This was amazing. We do not do this on a live site. We do this on a brand new site we're building. So you've got WordPress installed and nothing there. And you feed Claude a picture of which Claude or somebody probably generated, and say, I want you to build this page
Yep.
using, you can say Beaver Builder, you can say Divi, you can say Cadence, you can say,
Yep.
these are the tools I have, these are the licenses, all these are, go to my demo server my dev server where I'm building this site. There's nothing. Build me that homepage. Make sure you put the CSS in the file. Yeah, there's a lot of little picky things. It will build your site using your tools. And then you can say, how about the secondary page? And it is, if you really know what you're doing, which I don't, but I was watching somebody who did, you can tell it. He said he built 4 pages, maybe 5. It took him a few hours to train Claude
Mhm.
what the feel of the site should be, the way he likes to design. Took him a while, took these 4 or 5 demo pages, said to Claude, okay, don't do this, don't do something like this, do this instead. Anyway, I watched him build the homepage out of a flat JPEG.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it was frightening.
WordPress had that test environment thing too, where they're doing it where it'll build it in blocks for you. So it's one of those like WordPress.org experiments. I forget what it was called, but remember it's like off their main page. But it was like I don't know if it was on their GitHub or something like that, but it was a way to kind of point to a site and it would build it for you. It didn't have to be a WordPress site. It would build it for you in blocks. So it's just kind of interesting.
I've got a friend with a 1-page website that's just a placeholder for his domain, and I've got WordPress on there. That's going away. That's going to become a flat HTML Claude built page. He hasn't changed the copy on the page in
Telex,
eight,
that's what it is,
eight
Peter.
years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't need to be updating WordPress and
Yeah, it's
plugins and stuff
automatic.
on
Yeah,
that.
telex.automatic.ai. That's the giveaway.
So, Sue, I was already thinking of this question. And thank you for these demos, guys. My question is when you said it's frightening, I sure know that feeling and concept with AI. My particular question is, do any of you know if these AIs have been trained specifically on how to build WordPress or even websites? Or is
Yeah.
it one of these things that they suck it in and the intelligence is
Peter,
so
you want to deal with
massive?
that? You want to answer
Oh,
that?
yeah. So
That's a good one.
yeah, I mean, so AI is trained on all the information that it can find, right? So
Yeah.
what's nice about the WordPress project is it's an open source
Mhm.
project. So all code and all information about the whole code was developed is available and has been pulled in, and that and therefore is very, very, very useful. There are tools
It's
that have been built to very specifically think only about WordPress, and not this telex thing is it's an automatic thing. It's you can just it's sort of a sandbox for creating blocks in a way. So it's kind of got parameters around it, like make me a block that's going to play a Tetris game or something like that, and then okay, let me try that. But what I have found is that I had certain things that were specific to, for example, Cadence and that environment, WordPress, some other tools, and it knew how to format the code behind it. And it because again, it's pulling information from every source, every corner. One area that we're getting that's going to be really interesting going forward is when is AI learning only from AI? And then we're going to get in sort of this feedback loop that we have to be very, very careful to monitor. That is its own kind of area of interest.
So that
But
goes like Claude and Copilot and all those. I mean, they're heavily used in the software development sphere because that's where, you know, the AI stuff is great with language and especially programming languages, which are very structured. And like Peter said, it's not just that it's open source, it's that PHP, what is WordPress? It's PHP, it's SQL, it's languages that are well defined, well structured, and lots of references to them on the internet. So yeah, it excels at coding.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you notice in Telex, this is going back to the beginning of our conversation. This requires a WordPress.com login. So
Yeah.
I do have a WordPress.com account. So it's kind of
I was just thinking, Peter, when you said WordPress.com,
yeah,
WordPress dropped a little bit of a market share on new websites recently,
yeah,
but it didn't go to Squarespace or Wix or any of those things. I mean, it's going to vibe coding.
correct.
I have a feeling this AI is going to kill .com. Who would go? Why would you pay them $5,000 for a website?
But they're going to be the host of the Vibe. I mean, they're building AI into WordPress.com. I
Yeah.
think
Are they?
just like they
Okay.
all are. Yeah.
Well, I
You still
haven't logged
need,
into .com in a very long
yeah.
time.
I mean, you still need a place to host everything. In fact, that's where they're going to push they are already. When we looked at that, I think even earlier this year, a lot of the AI stuff that you see in like the AI plugin for WordPress, most of those features are first built into WordPress.com to begin with, and they're rolling them out to people there. So
Yeah, there's been a
Listen,
lot of push about getting AI into these tools. Some of it is kind of being also kind of rolled back. We're finding there's generational issues with AI, and WordPress already has a huge issue with younger people getting involved with WordPress. And now that it's like, oh, and it's all AI generated, that turns off. It's been found that that's been turning off a
mhm. I mean, when you let AI build your site, you don't know how to fix it. You don't know
correct.
how to edit it. You don't know how to change a picture. Um, in 5 to 10 years, websites are going to be extraordinarily different. We're just at the front door.
and the thing I found, even like that test from last year, again, I don't do a lot of straight coding anymore, but just the CSS test that I did, I know enough CSS to know what's good and what's bad. So when I was using it within the Chrome browser, trying to fix a problem, I knew how to fix it in like a couple lines of CSS. What the AI was doing, this is a year ago though, so in fairness, it was extremely verbose. It would
Yeah.
give me 10 times the amount of code I needed to do
Yeah.
something. And
When
it didn't really know either when I'd say, no, that doesn't work. Like I knew, and I gave it the context, they had the page. It would sometimes try over again with even more code. I'm like, no, give it to me
when
less.
AI builds a website, it wants to go to every block and format the text.
Yeah.
And you have to actually tell it to use a style sheet. And don't format blocks, the text in blocks. Don't make it 14 pixels here and 18 there. No, we
Mhm.
don't do that.
I hate to say it, Sue. I've worked with lots of developers who do the same. It's not
Mhm.
just AI.
And I've been getting sites where they're still doing fonts and pixels.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
does pixels anymore?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I made this recommendation a few times. If you do have multiple tools, I use one to measure another, or even just a different session. So, for example,
Right. Use it to
yeah,
check itself.
use it
Yes.
to check itself. So, for example, I'll go to Chat GPT and really and Chat GPT for me has gotten they keep kind of leapfrogging each other and things like that. Has gotten really good at code. Claude has always been, I'd say, generally always been considered the best in it, and it certainly is. But I might go through a lot of the idea process through Chat GPT,
Right.
build something, and then bring it to code and say, bring it to Claude and say, take a look at this code. Tell me what's right. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's, go through. How can I make this more efficient? What's missing? And it'll come back with this list about
Right.
all the things you wanted to tell me about
And
security.
then if you need your pictures edited, go to Gemini.
There you go.
Or if you need a
It's
web
it's
search, yeah, I use it for web searches still because it's Google has the entire web indexed already anyway. So it's really good at finding deep stuff on the web.
Ray,
Like for
when you
example,
do a search now for just about anything, and a lot of my searches are how do I do this thing?
mhm.
Yeah.
Do you even scroll down the page or do you just look at what Gemini tells you at the top?
If the answer is correct enough,
Yeah. Do you know
I
what
go,
that's doing to SEO
oh
for
yeah, that's the Google,
websites?
yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the whole the Google zero thing of eventually no truth. But that was prior to AI. That was Google snip, all the ad stuff and everything. It's just gotten worse now. Where I will say Gemini to me, I had an example recently. I have a TV, like not an OLED TV that's like 9 years old. It's a model that I'm sure I'm like I can't find any of the instruction books on anything. I had a very specific question about a setting on the TV. Like go to Gemini, bring it up. It's bringing me back all of the settings, all this deep information. Like where did you find that?
You can probably get the manual.
Yeah, I'm sure it's looking at the manual someplace. Like I can never find that thing. So
I want to show you this real quick because we're talking about AI. We touched on this in the last meetup, and this is with AI with the connector now connected to my Chat GPT account. With very limited through the API, which is not through chat, it's actually through the OpenAI platform account. It gets a little confusing. But then you have the AI from WordPress plugin, which used to be called AI Experiments, now it's called AI. And if you want to know where the focus is going to be, and quite honestly is now with WordPress and AI, now that you've connected to an external AI tool, in this case, the OpenAI Chat GPT model, and you can connect to Claude. I can show you where that is. But here's where it gets, this is where you in the experiments, what you can turn on and off. And I'll tell you, I'll give you kind of my little opinion about stuff like that. Oh, image generation and editing. Yeah, you can turn that on and you have the ability to create images. This is an example where I would go and just go do that when I get something, if I'm using AI generated images, and then just bring it in through the regular way instead of doing it through. So, again, deciding where you're going to do something and then bring it in. So I'll go work on the image in an image tool, just like I would use in Photoshop. Or I don't use Photoshop anymore. I use other tools.
What are you using?
I'm using Affinity.
Affinity. Yeah, I'm on the board of a nonprofit. We got pro affinity stuff.
Yep. And it's free now.
Yeah, for 501c3s. Yes,
yeah.
it is.
So editor experiments. So content classification, right? So this is kind of interesting where it can go through your content and it could decide, oh, this is about plants and this is about animals and this is about this, and it can make those things. You know what? I want to have a little bit of control over that. It can, content resizing, shorten, expand, rephrase, selected. That's for editing. That might be something that you want to do, right? Turn it on and say, hey, look at this. This big chunk of content, and how can I be more efficient? Bring it down. What I have turned on and have experimented with are things like excerpt generation. So I've the content is there. Write me a nice excerpt that I could use. Say I've got a query loop that's looking at it. So I've got the blog page and I'm just showing a little excerpt on it. So generate that excerpt, because otherwise, that's one of those things where it's like, oh, what is a good, one sentence, 2 sentence way of doing it? So you can have AI do it. Alt text generation is surprisingly good. And again, and I could show you, we did it last time too, but the ability to be able to run it and go, I don't like it, run it again. I don't like it, run it again. Of course, you're paying a penny or two for each time you do that. Meta description generation, generate, those with various, so connecting to certain SEO plugins to give you that, the keyword meta kind of driven stuff. Maybe I'll use it right now. I don't even worry about keywords anymore for the reasons we even just said.
Hey, Peter, so we got a question from TK.
Hey, Peter. Hey, Bray.
Hey.
Long time no see, you guys. Hey,
Hey,
Gerald.
how are you?
I had a question on the alt tag generation. How often do you find yourself fixing it by hand, fine-tuning it?
Honestly, I found that a regeneration, hey, that one works good, and maybe a small tweak works. It's surprisingly well, and it could be depending on which engine. I found before this existed, I created a custom GPT to do alt text, and I was really surprised at how well it could look at an image and describe it. So not too bad, but yeah, you always want to look at it. And in fact, built into, when you have an image and you do the alt text, it shows it to you. You can edit it right there, or you can say regenerate. And then if you want to do a little bit of tweaking right there.
I would say, if you think about AI training models, after text, which was the original, training thing for the early GPTs, images and video and all that kind of stuff, that was the next huge batch that really got pumped in as training models. So I'd say images are probably one of the best things that AI can recognize. I mean, think about it from the reverse. I mean, all of the, through text, it's able to generate an image. So doing the reverse is kind of trivial for it. So yeah.
Well, maybe it's my mindset. I'm constantly feeling like my situations are such that the picture relates to the business, and the alt tag needs to have a relation of the picture to the business. And if I leave it to AI, you don't get that, obviously.
So it depends on how. So that's an interesting point, and I'll have a little bit of a challenge, which is the whole discussion about, is alt text supposed to be there for somebody who cannot see the image and have that image described to them, or is it somehow tied to search engine optimization and all? And it should be the first and not the latter. But a lot of people are focusing on, I'm making all of this work towards my business and SEO, and that's kind of not what it's there for, in fact.
So here's an example.
Yeah.
You have a band and you're putting up the poster, and the poster has information in it. So you're going to use the alt tag to disseminate the information to the blind person. And you've got to state what that is. And I found the AI doesn't always, and I use AI a lot, but it doesn't always, it's not like it properly does a OCR job on the picture and pulls out the needed information. I always have to go in and tweak it. And so on those type of sites, I don't even use AI for the alt tags anymore.
Yeah, you know what? I'll admit, I haven't done that enough to test that. That's a great point, because if you have text on an image and you're using alt text, that text should be in your alt text, right? So if I can read words in an image, I should be able to, have a screen reader read those words back to me. While we're doing it, I was just going to grab an
Just
image.
a time check too. We're coming up at the end
Yeah.
here, but this is good though.
Thank you for
So-
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so here's the an image is selected, and then this image regenerate alt text. That's because of the connector to AI, and because I've turned that on in options. So right now the alt text is a blue dragonfly with clear wings perched on it then, but if I regenerate it, it's going to go out, talk to the AI engine, and come back and modify that text, which you can accept or not accept, right? Things aren't there until you save it or don't save it. But yeah, there are certainly right. So this is what it came back: blue dragonfly perched on a twig against a blurred green background, which is more efficient than this one. So I might say, well, let me apply that, and now it's put that in there. But yeah, if you know how alt text works and you've got words there that should be there and all, and you have to tweak it, definitely DK, exactly what you're saying. You've got to do the right thing by it. If you have a lot of images that you just want to give the description. What's great about AI here is a lot of people, they just panic whenever they have to think about alt text,
Mhm.
Yeah.
not even understanding what it's supposed to do. And it's like any kind of white page syndrome where you look at it and go, how do I describe this? Whereas AI looks at it and goes, oh, well, that's a blue dragonfly perched on a twig against a blurred green background. Perfect.
It's a good starting point, like you said. And then from
Yeah,
there,
exactly. Sometimes it's right. Sometimes it takes a tweak. If you've got very specific things, in your case with a band, and you want to say, give the band name, as part of it, because in context that might be right. So, the Ruddles playing on stage in front of a large crowd. If you know who the Ruddles are, extra points to you.
Bada boom.
Ooh, that's a deep reference. Deep.
So, yeah, there you go.
And on that note,
There you go.
Peter's mic drop with the Ruddles reference.
That's right.
All right. Well, that was good. Thank you very much. I'm glad. Hopefully, answered some questions. Ted, let us know if you come back next month for the our next summer school one. Let us know how the upgrade went to 7.0.
Thank you. You guys are very dear. Really amazing.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Have a good rest of your summer, and we'll see you again next month. Take care.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.